Somewhere in Mississauga, a 34-year-old named Derek sat across from a bank advisor in 2019, filling out paperwork for his first tax-free savings account. The advisor smiled. She told him this was the safe choice. She never once mentioned an index fund. She never mentioned growth at all. She simply moved his signature from line to line, and Derek walked out feeling responsible. That feeling lasted 6 years. Then, this spring, Derek sat down with his best friend from college and opened 2 laptops side by side. What he saw made his stomach drop. Same income, same starting year, same bank even. But one account had barely grown past inflation, and the other had nearly doubled. The difference wasn't luck. It wasn't market timing. It was a choice someone else made for him, dressed up as advice. Here's the question nobody asks at the counter. Why is the safe option always the one that keeps your money exactly where the bank can use it? Why is cash the default and growth the fine print? This isn't a story about bad luck or even bad decisions. It's a story about who benefits when millions of people treat their most powerful account like a parking lot. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your bank wants you to keep that money sitting still. If you believe financial freedom starts with knowledge, subscribe to Financial Freedom Canada with Marcus. New videos every day to help you build lasting wealth. Let's go back to 2019 and look at the actual numbers, because this is where the story stops being abstract. Derek contributed $6,000 that first year, then kept adding whatever his room allowed year after year. His account sat in a high-interest savings account, paying, at best, 3.5%. Some years it barely cleared 3%. His friend, using the exact same contribution room, put almost everything into a simple, all-equity ETF. 6 years later, Derek's account showed just over $41,000. His friend's account showed nearly $58,000. Same deposits, same account type, same tax shelter. A $17,000 gap, sitting quietly, invisible until the day they actually compared screens. And Derek isn't unusual. Across the country, billions of dollars sit inside TFS as earning savings account interest, inside an account that was specifically built to hold tax-free growth. Picture a warehouse built for high-performance engines, and every single unit inside is storing bicycles. That's what most TFSs look like right now, at this very moment, across Canada. Derek didn't feel stupid when he opened that account. He felt careful. He remembers the advisor's exact words, "This way, you can't lose anything." And technically, she was right. He couldn't lose money. He also couldn't build any. Nobody at that desk explained the difference between protecting a number and growing one. Nobody explained that inflation alone was quietly taking 3 or 4% a year just to stand still. So for 6 years, Derek believed he was doing exactly what a responsible adult does with money. And in a narrow sense, he was. He just didn't know there was a second, much larger conversation happening that nobody at the bank had any incentive to start. Multiply Derek's $17,000 gap across a career, and the number stops being uncomfortable and starts being frightening. Over 30 years, that same pattern, repeated every single year, can quietly cost a household 6 figures. Not because the market failed anyone, because nobody was told which door led where. Looking back now, Derek says the strangest part wasn't losing $17,000. It was realizing nobody had ever asked him what he wanted his money to do. Not once, in 6 years, did anyone ask if he wanted growth, or income, or simply peace of mind. The account was opened, the box was checked, and the conversation ended there. Here's the part that changes how you see that smiling advisor. When you deposit cash into a savings account, that money doesn't just sit in a vault waiting for you. The bank uses it. It lends a version of your money out again, as mortgages, as car loans, as lines of credit, often at 5, 6, 7% or more. You're earning 3.5. They're charging 6 or 7 on the other side of the same dollar. That gap between what they pay you and what they charge someone else has a name in banking: the spread. And the spread is not an accident. It is, in large part, the business model. Your neighbor's mortgage payment this month is partly funded by deposits just like Derek's, sitting quietly, earning almost nothing, while doing quite a lot of work for someone else. This doesn't make the bank a villain in the cartoon sense. It makes the incentive structure obvious once you actually look at it. A dollar sitting in a savings account is a dollar the bank can use immediately and comfortably at very little cost to them. A dollar that leaves for an ETF held at a discount brokerage earns the bank nothing at all. So, which option do you think gets presented as the responsible one at the counter? Which option do you think gets a warm smile and reassuring language, and which one barely gets mentioned? This is the first illusion cracking open, that the advice you received was primarily about your outcome. It wasn't built to hurt you, but it also wasn't built around what would have made you the most money. It was built around what kept your money exactly where the institution could use it best. Think about it in real terms. If Derek had $10,000 sitting in that account, the bank might be lending out a version of that same $10,000 at double the rate it pays him. That's not theft, it's leverage, and it's legal, and it happens every single day inside every branch in the country. The uncomfortable part isn't that banks do this. Banks exist to do this. The uncomfortable part is that almost nobody explains it to the person opening the account. To understand why this keeps happening, you have to look at how bank advisors are actually evaluated, not how they're advertised. Most branch advisors work under sales targets. Not evil targets, just ordinary corporate ones. Number of new accounts opened, number of in-house products sold, GICs, high-interest savings accounts, proprietary mutual funds. An advisor rarely has a target for clients who bought a low-cost ETF at a competitor's brokerage. There's no bonus attached to sending your money somewhere the bank doesn't profit from. So the recommendation you receive at the counter isn't random. It's shaped, quietly and legally, by what the institution is structured to sell. Most of Canada's largest banks also own their own investment fund divisions. So when an advisor does eventually recommend growth, it often means a mutual fund with the bank's name on it, carrying a management fee that can run close to 2% a year. Compare that to a self-directed ETF, charging around 0.2%, and you start to see a second layer to this story. It isn't only about cash versus growth anymore. It's about which growth, and who collects the fee on the way there. None of this requires a conspiracy. It just requires an org chart, a bonus structure, and millions of customers who never ask where the incentive actually points. Derek's advisor wasn't lying to him. She was doing her job exactly as designed. The system doesn't need anyone to be dishonest for the outcome to favor the bank. It only needs the customer to stay uninformed, comfortable, and grateful for the smile at the counter. Walk into 5 different branches across 5 different cities, and you'll hear some version of the exact same script. That's not a coincidence either. Training materials are standardized, talking points are standardized. The words safe and responsible get repeated because they test well, because they make customers feel good about a decision that's already been shaped for them before they ever sat down. And here's what makes it so effective. None of it is technically false. A savings account is safe. It just isn't the job the TFSA was built to do. Calling it safe and calling it smart are two very different claims, and the entire industry has learned to blur that line just enough that most people never notice the gap. This is why the fix isn't complicated once you see it clearly. It's not about distrusting every advisor you meet. It's about understanding that safe and optimal are marketing words wearing the same coat, and only one of them is actually working for you. Now here's the part that catches even the people who think they've already outsmarted the system. Say Derek's friend hadn't just gotten lucky. Say Derek, after learning all this, walks back into the same branch and says, "Fine, put me in something with growth." The advisor nods and moves him into a mutual fund with the bank's own name on the cover. Progress, technically, but look closer. That fund carries a management expense ratio of close to 2% a year. Not 2% once, 2% every single year, quietly subtracted before Derek ever sees his return. Compare that to the ETF his friend picked, charging roughly 0.2%. On paper, a 1.8% difference sounds small enough to ignore. Over 30 years, compounded, it isn't small at all. On the same six-figure balance, that gap alone can quietly erase tens of thousands of dollars, not from bad markets, but from a fee structure most people never read past the fine print. So the second illusion cracks open here. Escaping cash isn't the finish line. There's a second toll booth waiting right after the first one, and it's dressed up exactly like the solution. It even uses the word growth in its own name. This is also where the difference between advisors actually matters, and almost nobody explains it clearly. A branch advisor at a bank is often paid, directly or indirectly, based on which products you choose. A fee-only financial planner, by contrast, is legally required to act in your best interest, regardless of which product that leads to, because that's how their compensation is structured from the start. One of these people has a professional obligation to put your outcome first. The other has a job description that rewards a different outcome entirely. Derek didn't know this distinction existed until his friend explained it to him over coffee, almost as an afterthought. "Wait," Derek said, "you're telling me the person giving me advice isn't required to work for me?" His friend just shrugged. Most people never ask the question, so most people never get the answer. This isn't a call to distrust every advisor at every bank. Plenty are genuinely trying to help within a system that wasn't built around your outcome as the primary goal. But knowing the incentive that sits underneath the smile changes what questions you think to ask. It changes whether you nod along or whether you ask, plainly, what does this cost me every year, and who receives that fee? Zoom out now, past Derek, past any single account, and look at the shape of the whole country. Tens of billions of dollars sit inside Canadian TFSAs earning savings account interest rather than market returns. That's not one bad decision. That's a pattern, repeated by millions of people, shaped by the same branch scripts, the same defaults, the same quiet incentive running underneath all of it. And that pattern doesn't just cost individuals. It shapes where cheap capital flows in this country and who gets to use it. Every dollar sitting idle at 3.5% is a dollar the banking system can deploy elsewhere at a much higher return, funding the very system that benefits from your inaction. This is the uncomfortable truth underneath the personal story. The system doesn't require you to fail. It only requires you to stay exactly where you are, comfortable, unquestioning, and grateful for a rate that sounds responsible. Nobody is legally obligated to teach you the difference between a savings account and a tax shelter. There is no rule requiring a bank to explain the spread or the fee or the incentive sitting behind the recommendation. That education, if it happens at all, has to come from somewhere else. A friend with two laptops open side by side. A conversation nobody has at the counter. A video like this one, watched at exactly the wrong or exactly the right moment, depending on how you look at it. So where does that leave Derek now? He moved his money, he asked better questions, he reads the fee line before he signs anything. But the 6 years are gone, and no amount of good decisions going forward buys those years back. That's the part nobody tells you at the counter, and it's the part worth sitting with for a moment. The system isn't designed to make you lose. It also isn't designed to make you win. It's neutral, in the coldest sense of the word, and neutral always tends to favor whoever already understood the rules first. So the next time you sit down across from someone offering you the safe option, the question worth asking isn't whether the product is safe, it's who benefits if you never ask anything else. That question costs you nothing. Not asking it can cost you everything.
If this story changed the way you see money, subscribe for more deep story about finance, power, and the system behind it.